welcome everybody to the Wednesday edition of the Daily Cheat Sheet. I want to thank everybody that's gotten us so high in the ratings. It means the world to us. I want to specifically thank the people from Truth, people like David, other people that I don't want to name their names. They might want to remain anonymous. But David, you rock. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
And David's got a great sense of humor about it. I wrote a truth to him in which I told him that I thought he was a hero and said that if I was an artist, I would draw him in tights. And then I lamented that I made it weird. And to his credit, he played right along and said, that's okay. I like it weird. So these are my type of fans. Let's go.
Let's get right to it. Tulsi Gabbard is refreshing. She's doing something that we have not witnessed a Republican do. We've witnessed Democrats do things at warp speed with no evidence go on. But she's bringing to the table warp speed, referring it to Pam Bondi today. It's absolutely refreshing and a breath of fresh air.
You know, I don't know if everyone's had an opportunity to watch. I saw it on YouTube. I'm sure there are other places you can see it as well. But she laid out for about 10 full minutes every detail of the case that she is presenting to Pam Bondi. The details of the report. Some of these details are quite interesting. I would even go so far as to say shocking, maybe even lascivious. But I think she's doing something that we haven't really seen before, which is not wasting time. This came up just a day or two ago that she announced that she even was writing this report, that she had gathered the evidence that was necessary to move forward. And today she was already standing at a podium, letting everyone know exactly what the details were and moving it right along the chain to Pam Bondi so she can begin. Someone on Truth Social asked me, how long should this take, if we're being realistic about how long the process goes? And the person who asked me was lamenting how everybody is in this fast food, instant gratification, DoorDash kind of mentality where they want everything to happen right this second. It is important for everyone to keep in mind that there is still a legal process this has to go through. That means they have to look over all of the evidence. Remember what we said yesterday, Pam Bondi, she is an overseer. She is a collator of information. And now she takes the evidence that other people gathered and she has to build a case with it. That will take time, probably about 30 days to 45 days. After that, for her to actually go further and continue to send people out to do additional investigation, et cetera, by the time we hit day 60 to day 90, that's when we will know if they have discovered enough to make this an actual case. At that point, we should see a public speech, just like Tulsi just did, except now saying charges are being brought and moving forward. If it doesn't happen then, we may not have a case that's going to go, and we can discuss at length, and I'm sure we will, why that's not happening. Right now, let's just hope that the same speed that Tulsi is using, Bondi picks up on.
You know, Mend, I'm not sure you saw her speak this morning, but it was actually quite fascinating, and it was quite fascinating the things that she actually brought up. I just want to bring up this point, Mend. Nobody thought Trump was going to win, other than MAGA people and other than people that voted for him. We were all sure that he was going to win. So this idea and this notion that Russia thought he was going to win was bucking every trend known to man. So Russia actually had evidence on Hillary Clinton, is what Tulsi Gabbard was showing today, that her moods were moody, she was raging, she was a bunch of, and she had to be on tranquilizers. This was information that they were actually ready to release the second Hillary Clinton came out.
And to be clear, the second Hillary Clinton was elected because they were certain Hillary Clinton was going to be elected.
Yeah,
that's what the intelligence
That's what I meant
tells
by
us.
coming out. I didn't mean by coming out of the closet.
Well,
go on.
pantsuits, you don't know.
So to clarify what we talked about the other days about the Russia collusion and the Russia meddling in the election, they meddled, but not enough to make any difference, any change. And they thought it was Hillary that was going to win. So much so that they hacked Hillary's emails because she used the unsecure email server, which was the whole email fiasco that we went through, that for some reason they let her off the hook. And now that's coming out, that why they let her off the hook on the email scandal. But the Russians, by reading her emails, they saw her fabricating this story against them with Trump, and they were baffled by it. the Norwegians, I think, were the ones who hacked the Russians, and they were seeing that the Russians couldn't understand what was going on here. Why is Hillary blaming Russia for some collusion with Trump when it was completely made up? That's number one. What Tulsi laid out today was really important and was also very telling, that as soon as she started going into details of what the charges were, what they uncovered, the evidence, CNN cut away to the commentator. So that was absolutely telling what kind of farce CNN is.
Wow.
The last thing that I'm going to say about this is that I hope Trump did not get shot in the face only to let these people off the hook. He needs to go after them with a vengeance. And this is not a politically motivated witch hunt. This is upholding the rule of law in this country, going after the criminals that were in government that destroyed this country. They really attempted to have a civil war. We were on track to just infight for forever. What the Democrats and Obama and his people tried to do was tear us apart, destroy us from the inside. That's cool. Absolutely.
All right.
Okay. Golan, it's extremely interesting. Men just brought up a great point about Trump going after him. First of all, I think Trump is 100% full throttle on this, because to points that Mend has brought up in the past, he decided to not go after Hillary in his first term, to not divide the country. And right now, as we brought up yesterday, I don't think there's a doubt in the world, if Pam Bondi takes the evidence that Tulsi Gabbard has brought her, that she will go as hard against Obama, Comey, Brennan, Clapper. When you Golan, when you listen to her press conference this morning, you're a screenwriter. This was a script. This was a movie script that you wouldn't believe.
Look, it is certainly the beginning of some kind of political or legal thriller. Like, if you go back and you look at the Parallax View, or you look at the Pelican Brief, or any of these kind of movies, first of all, the conspiracy theory, the paranoid thriller, the 3 Days of the Condor, all of these things, they start with a speech like this. And the speech basically is going to spin everything off the world's axis. Here, we have a president going after a previous president. So, okay, I would say, oh my God, precedents with the C are being thrown out the window. But I'm sorry, we've already been down a road where the president goes after a president. And as we said yesterday, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If this is the world that you are setting up, and this is the way you want things to run, where every time things don't go your way, you want to pack the Supreme Court, you want to throw 150 cases at the president, you want to try and bankrupt, put him in jail, and do all the other stuff you can do to prevent him from running or to scare him into dropping out, well, then why would you be surprised, or why would you write every article known to man about how Tulsi Gabbard, once scorned, is now trying to get revenge? All the little buzzwords that make it seem like this isn't legitimate. You created this world. Speaking of screenwriter, right? All I'm doing is making worlds. You made this world. Now you're living in it. So the fact that it turned around on you, I'm sorry, at some point Arnold Schwarzenegger was a police officer, but then he was the running man and he had to go on the run. Sometimes it comes back to bite you.
Love the 80s references. We live for 80s references. Man, I want to bring up something to you. Forensic Files is one of my favorite shows of all time, but a lot of people are unaware of this, that they used to use, especially the FBI, to get people, they would use hair evidence, hair for DNA. And I want to say it was about 80% of the cases were overturned. And the FBI had to release, I believe, 80% of the people that were found guilty with this bunk evidence at the time. When you look at what the DOJ has done and did to suppress, manipulate, and violate the Constitution, our president, and the American people, if I'm sitting in prison right now and the DOJ went after me, it's almost like fruit from the poisonous tree, which I know this is not. Every case, men, that they prosecuted should be looked at, no matter what it is.
Yeah, I think the hair thing that you're talking about is when they were using hair fingerprints, where they looked at like the hair growth pattern in the actual follicle, which turned out to be bunk science. there was a lot of misconduct that we saw over the last 4, 8, 12 years from the FBI. That organization and any organization that goes down the DEI woke rabbit hole always just gets super corrupted. It's like socialism in any country. If you're not dealing with things with, blind justice, equal justice for all, if you're adding filters to all of those things, you're going to slip down that slope and you're going to wind up in, uncharted no man's land. So yeah, they should be looking at that. I'm glad that Trump pardoned all of the J6ers. And, I was actually talking to a guy about that once, and he was like, well, the J6ers. I said, listen, if there was exculpatory evidence that was hidden from their lawyers that could have gotten them off, which was, because we know that, the video files that were dumped to Tucker Carlson, where it showed the police officers just ushering people in. And a lot of them were well-intentioned, law-abiding citizens who did nothing. They stayed between the red velvet ropes. They literally were like tourists. So if there was that evidence that was deleted, then you have to let them all out because you don't know who's innocent and who's not. So yeah, they should do a review. But more important than that, they need to go after all of these top big-wigged officials that are on CNN every night pontificating about the moral corruption of this country. Go after them. Those are the people that must be taken down. The people at the top, the people at the bottom, whatever, figure that out later. Right now, go after everyone on the top.
Well said. And Golan, remember Narrow Margin, since we're bringing up movies, with Gene Hackman? There was that scene in the movie with that and Ann Archer, and there was that scene in the movie where he was talking about there's nothing that he loves more, and I'm paraphrasing Gene Hackman, that at the end of the trial, when the defendant's collar, when it's, when it starts getting really tight around his neck and he's got to open up the button, like in a sense, to breathe. I pray tonight that the names or the people that Mend is referring to, their collars are really tight, because that's what they did to the American people for 16 years. They made us fear everything, be afraid of everything, of what we said. I pray tonight that Brennan, Clapper, Obama, Hillary, every single one of them is sitting at home with tightness in their chest and their throats.
I can see that you're really emotional about that, and you should be, because it's not just that they were going after politicians. That's a really important thing. They made everybody who wasn't following the quote unquote doctrine feel afraid. You couldn't open your mouth to say what was happening in front of you. You had to deny truth. You had to deny reality. You had to say things that you knew to be untrue in order to be in line with whatever they needed to hear in order to grant you humanity. That is not politics. That is absolutely not politics. That's trying to be God. And ultimately, we all felt it. And of course, we felt it even more so when they locked us inside our houses and when they slapped masks over our kids' faces and all the rest. But this has been happening now for at least a quarter of my life, and I have felt it every single day. And I'm someone who, I don't speak out of turn. I'm not someone who is out there throwing out racial epithets and things like that. I'm just a normal person, and I still was afraid. I still had to watch what I was saying. That's why you should be emotional about that. And Mend, to your point, I'm going to go back to what you were saying just for a second about the J6ers. The reason why January 6th is an interesting thing to bring up in relation to this is because of the asymmetry of it, right? Because it's not that we have a balanced situation. BLM riots are happening. You torch a cop car, you destroy an entire building, you get a slap on the wrist. But for people who, and I'm not saying it was good. It was a stupid thing. It was a violent thing. It shouldn't have happened. Absolutely. Was it an insurrection? Was it 30 years in prison worth of punishment? No, that is ridiculous. These people were trespassing, yes, in the house that they pay for, but still trespassing, chanting, walking around with flags, unhappy about what was happening, especially because there was a lot of misinformation going in both directions. So for them to be treated that way, especially after what we had just seen with the BLM riots, shows the asymmetry of it. And this right now is where we are politically. We have seen what happens when Trump is accused with no evidence. bulldozing constantly, jackhammers nonstop until he's on his knees. Do you remember when they said, we're going to change what the assessment of the cost of Mar-a-Lago is because we don't want you to be able to leverage it to pay off your bills? I mean, these insane things that judges just invented whole cloth. And here, at least based on what Tulsi presented today, is so clear. The evidence is black and white. So if we can't do this using evidence, then we will know that asymmetry is permanent and we may as well wrap it up and go home. This is our litmus test right now.
I got two things for that. One is, as far as J6 goes, I thought it was moronic to have these people that were that charged up march down to the Capitol. I was against it. I thought there was no good that was going to come out of that.
Don't disagree.
He did say peacefully protest. Everything he said correct, but those people were so charged up, it was a bad idea to send them down there, especially since there was nothing they could do. There was nothing that they were going to be able to do to stop the democratic process. So that was number one. Number two, some were trespassing. A lot of them were not. A lot of them were invited into the house by the officers who guard that house. So
and FBI agents.
A lot of FBI agents embedded in that group. Three, the mayor of Washington refused to deploy the National Guards, right, which days prior, Trump authorized it. So in order to deploy the National Guard, there's a two-step process. One is the federal government has to authorize it, and then the local elected official in Washington, D.C., it's the mayor, has to deploy them. And this is a check and balance against the government from just sending troops into people's cities. So we have that local protection. It was a local DC mayor who refused that. So it's kind of on them. Nancy Pelosi was behind that. So that's the trespassing part and what was going on there. As far as the asymmetry of the two, Black Lives Matter, I mean, they burnt down cities and nobody was held accountable. And then finally, you talk about what these people do. When these people, I'm talking about the people who hate America and they're willing to do anything to destroy this democracy. Lately, it's been a lot of that on the left. They tried to have the candidate taken off the ballot. They did that to Trump. So now it's open season. I think they should take.
I love that. Can I stop you for a second? I love that you bring that up because it's sort of an amazing thing in Trump world and Trump land that we forget these things so
there's
quickly.
So much. There's so much going on.
I am so glad you brought that up because as a person that follows this every day, I had totally forgotten about that. So but that's how much stuff happens.
But the result of that is now we should pass a law that only U.S. natural born citizens can hold office. And we could take Ilhan Omar and all those other scammers, those people that hate this country, and kick them off the ballot, kick them out of the country. The ones that need to be kicked out should be kicked out, but easily take them off, take away their positions of power.
I want to end it with this to both of you guys. I have a little bit of a different take on January 6th. If that was the worst, I mean, look, if any damage that was done that day was fixed probably within a day. Okay. I mean, let's be honest. If that's the worst case of people needing to blow off steam because of everything that had been done to them, I'll accept that day as being the worst of steam blowing off go on compared to everything that we witnessed for 4 years before that. That's just my humble opinion. I don't look at January 6th as this terrible day, as this horrible day. I look at it as a day that went a little awry. And it was blown up. It was obviously the same people that have been writing reports, Comer, Clapper, all these deep state people wrote up reports on that. So that's just my humble opinion on that. I want to move to men's favorite subject, which is Jeffrey Epstein. A judge today, Robin Rosenberg of Florida, denied a Justice Department request to unseal grand jury records related to Epstein from 2005 to 2007 investigations, citing strict legal limits. And she also rejected transferring the case to New York. I want to make this clear. She is an Obama appointee. That is the most important part. It is such a ridiculous thing. And she emphasized existing precedent that left her hands tied in the decision. Those words a little awkward to be used in this type of situation with Epstein. But that's just...
I think that ultimately we are seeing, first of all, what was the name of the judge?
Robin Rosenberg.
Okay, so just once again, making the Jews look good. I think this is not about legal procedure. I think we all recognize that. I actually think it has nothing to do with Epstein. I actually think that in releasing those files, Trump gets relief. And if Trump's saying, you know what, release whatever is possible. Of course, want to protect the victims. Like he said, we want to make sure that the courts are okay with whatever we're releasing. And the court in this case, the Obama judge, not releasing that information actually means that we continue to obscure something. It continues to point the finger. Trump looks, for those who don't understand what's going on with the judiciary and don't understand how all the checks and balances work, it looks like, oh, what I thought Trump said he was going to release all the files. Oh, now he's not, probably on the list. And so they continue to do the same game. And what they've done is they've just added a little fuel to the fire instead of allowing truth to be out into the world.
Coincidentally, that you bring up that point, Mend, is that the Wall Street Journal is reporting today, of course, through 3 anonymous sources, that Pam Bondi told Trump in May that he was in the files. So, again, another Wall Street Journal hit piece written.
That Pam Bondi told who?
Pam Bondi told Trump that he was supposedly that he was in the Epstein files, which we already knew he was in the Epstein files because his name was in the first batch released. So he essentially said to her, just release everything. That's the same report. And it's all hearsay.
You understand though, that what they've done up until now is just repackage information that we already had, made it seem like this is new information. They repurposed it, they put a new bow on it, threw it in a new box, and then gave it back to us again. Because this is just a way to make it incendiary. They're basically saying, hey, everyone's mad right now about the Epstein files, and everyone's kind of saying that if Trump doesn't release them, we don't trust him. Well, guess what? He's in the files. Wait, what? This is new? And everyone gets mad, not realizing that they already heard this a year ago. They already heard this several years ago. So this is not new information. And they keep doing this, by the way. All of the stuff that we have heard leaked, he's friends with him, here's a photo with him. All of these things are things that we knew a long time ago. They're just now putting a shiny light behind it so you really pay attention to it at this moment in time.
I could guarantee you that Trump was not one of the pedophiles on Epstein Island. And I know this because I've looked at every single girl he's dated and they were all super hot and he had access to all of them. He didn't need to go to Epstein Island to molest some hood rats that Epstein shuttled over there with the enticement of a few dollars. And these were inner city poor. All of them were poor from broken homes. This guy owned Miss Universe. What are you talking about? What are we talking about? The guy has more money than God. He was hooking up with tons of models. And you're going to tell me that he decided to fly to Epstein Island to what? No.
So look, I just have to make sure that I at least say this so I feel clean by the end of the show. I happen to not think he was one of the people doing anything lascivious on Epstein Island, but that's not the reason why. There are people who have access to everything in the world, and that kind of power still is enticing. Lest we forget, Hugh Grant married to Elizabeth Hurley, and somehow that fat hooker, Divine Brown, still lured him away to get a BJ in a car, for which he went on the Tonight Show and said, oops, No.
But what I think what he means, though, is this is so not Trump. This is just not Trump-ian or Trump-esque. That's what makes this whole story just so ridiculous. Of course, Trump knew Jeffrey Epstein. Trump was at Hillary Clinton's wedding. This was something he won on during the debate. Remember when they all tried to, say to him about who he was donating to? And he said, yeah, of course, I bought everybody off. That was my job, was to buy everybody off. And I'm paraphrasing. And when Chris Wallace questioned him about owing the banks, And he said, do you know who these bankers are? You make it sound like it's mom and pop. These are vicious animals. And he has never, and this is what the evangelicals and the Christians have always loved about him, was he might be flawed, but he's honestly flawed. He has never held back from who Donald Trump is. He has never retracted an interview that he did with Howard Stern saying, I didn't say that. Nothing. He has owned everything that they have thrown at him, Golan, when it comes to this, to his previous lifestyle.
Well, look, I'm going to just lay this out from a legal perspective. Okay, there are people, as I said a number of episodes ago, there are people who are mentioned in witness testimony, like the Prince Andrews of the world, are mentioned in witness testimony. And that means there is evidence, at least, to pursue that those people have done something wrong. Same thing with Epstein, same thing with Maxwell when it came to their own lascivious nature. There is zero evidence that Donald Trump participated in anything related to Epstein's sex trafficking, anything related to pedophilia. There is, in fact, evidence that Trump threw him out of Mar-a-Lago and distanced himself from him in 2002, long before a lot of the other elites and government officials and all these other kind of masters of the universe that are currently pretending like they never spoke to the guy did so. That is in evidence, and there is no disputing that.
Okay, so man, let me go to you next. The House Oversight Committee with James Comer, they are going to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell for a prison interview on August 11th. So I thought you'd be happy to hear that.
That's great. That's great. And I hope she spills the beans and gets herself some sort of reduction in her sentence for bringing everybody else to justice.
That's if she has anything to say.
The only way that she doesn't say anything is if they do what they did in The Godfather and they say, yeah, we'll take care of your family, but you're going to off yourself tonight. So
I don't. She doesn't really have much family to speak of. But again, this is something you wanted. So this is something you're getting. I mean, Golan, again.
That's great.
This is full transparency. Everything they're doing is transparency. And what angers me the most is in life, you only have certain types of capital. And we've discussed this before. You have to build up capital. You build up political capital. You build up financial capital. You build up trust with people that listen to you, people that influence you, or people that you're influenced by. And this is what bothers me about all the influencers that went nuts, is that as real situations now are coming down the pike, whether it's with Tulsi, what she's bringing to the table, with what Comer's doing today. And I know those influencers would say, oh, they're only doing it because of us. May be true. I don't know. I can't get into their brains. But this is a time when Trump needs the party to be as tightly knit as possible.
Look, I think there is some truth to their doing it because of them, because the outcry was so outsized compared to the reality that they had to do something. They were watching the house light on fire, so they had to throw a bucket of water on it. Was it necessary for them to go all vitriolic and for the Trump administration to have to focus all of their energy on this, thereby stopping progress we were making on some actual issues that would affect our lives? Probably not. We could have gotten to this a little later, but suddenly everybody in the world was brainwashed into believing that this was the most important thing for them. And I always use the same example, that guy at TPUSA saying, I love Trump, I'm MAGA, and if he doesn't release the Epstein files, I'll never trust him again. It's like, oh, okay, this is the only thing then. Okay, now we understand. So if this is where we are, fine, this is where we are. The irony of the whole thing is that, as Mendes pointed out, we had the Biden administration not do much with it, treading water. And now, with Trump in charge, the cover-ups are starting to go away. The subpoenas are starting to fly. Tulsi's starting to give speeches. Now, did they screw up some PR? Yeah, they did. That's what kind of lit the fire here. But we are actually talking about justice wheels turning. And if you are watching what's happening and you're really paying attention, you can see that despite that PR hiccup, the DOJ right now is not playing games. The Oversight Committee subpoenaing Ghislaine Maxwell is just part of that. And we'll see if she has anything to say, remembering that her conviction was not about co-conspirators, was not about all these cool names that we all want to hear, because ultimately My father pointed something out that I'd never really articulated this way. I think it was a smart observation. These people are looking for gossip. They're not looking for truth, many of them. Mend, I know you are. Again, you're the honest broker. But many people are not. They're looking for, ooh, which of these names is going to be mentioned? Which famous person is going to be in there? Ooh, I can't wait to see who this is going to be. You could just read the National Enquirer and do the same thing, but now you get to do it on the world stage. So this is where we are. We'll get through this. And when we do, we can get back to actual work.
I think there's a couple of things that should be taken into account. One is there was this elite guy with his fancy island and all that money and all these powerful people that were going there. And the people have been told about this for a long time, that there was nefarious things going on there. And the guy was a pedophile and a rapist and all that other stuff.
Convicted in your defense.
Right. So you hear about that, and then you find out Bill Clinton was on that island and all these other big shots and God knows who else, allegedly. So the masses, the average American has been hearing about this for years, that there's this guy, blah, blah, blah. Along comes Trump. And again, the optics on this one is terrible because he probably had a sit down with his people and said, what do we have? And they're like, oh, let's open that folder. Let's take a look. Oh, turns out there's not much in there. He came out and said, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Let's move on. And that just enraged people because it seemed like more of the same. So people said, hell no, we are going to make a stand here. Now, I'm not talking about the people that are being paid by Qatar to sow discontent in this country. I am talking about the average American, people like me, that are just saying, why would you do that? Appoint a prosecutor, an investigator.
You are not the average American man.
I get that. And you guys tell me that all the time. Doesn't change the fact that the right thing to do in that scenario would be, instead of coming out to say that there's nothing there, you come out and say, in the investigation that the previous administration did, there's nothing in that is hot evidence. We don't have any hot evidence in the investigation that the previous administration did. We are going to redo that investigation. We don't know if we're going to find anything, but we are going to look. End of story. Moving on. Let's talk about trade. Let's talk about whatever else. Could have done it that way. It would have been amazing. Instead, he did it the other way, and it blew up in his face, and everybody's just fighting.
The reason why I mentioned that you are not a regular American, and I mean that as in you are an exceptional American, is because, yes, well, it's because you think, and you believe, and I think that for you it's true, that that is the case. That if they had come out and said, we did it in a measured way, we found what we found, it didn't work out, let's move on, you would have been like, hey, I appreciate your honesty. Yeah, let's talk gas prices. Other people don't have that because their dog whistle Pavlovian brain are going, what does TikTok say? And then TikTok says, if he doesn't release the files, he's in the files. And now you got to go get them. And if you don't, you can't trust them. And now you better destroy the entire country. And they're like, whatever you say, TikTok masters. And all the kids praise bin Laden. That's where we are now. That's who Americans are. Not all of them, obviously, but a massive chunk of them. And that's the problem. The thing that I keep saying is not meant to deride people. I don't want them to feel like I'm making fun of them. Manipulation and marketing and propaganda work because the human brain is designed to fall for this stuff. It's the same reason why men can be seduced easily. It's the same reason why it's easy to get fat. Our brains like easy, clicky, easy, yummy things. And easy, yummy things in this case is give me more gossip, give me more anger. I want to be mad at somebody. So you would have moved on. But I would posit that 85% of the other people who are in that boat right now, who believe this is the only thing they care about and it is the benchmark for truth, would not have moved on. And I think it's important for people who are honest brokers like yourself to recognize that and make sure that you at least leave a little gap between you and them, because they are not going to go the direction you're going to go when the time comes.
Agreed. I mean, they're arsonists. You know, they're just running into a room and punching somebody randomly in the face and then running out and saying he did it. So yeah, there's a large contingency of people that do that, but there's a lot of people like me out there, or at least I'd like to believe that would say, okay, fine, they're going to look into it. Let's see where this goes.
Okay, let's end this. You know how much I love talking about Epstein. The only reason I brought it up today is because it's in the news with the Oversight Committee, and that is actually a news story that James Comer is going to do that. But it's important to remember the timeline of events. This was brought out in 2019 as Trump was about to be, that's when he was arrested, essentially. This was definitely brought about to bring Trump down in 2020. So it's extremely important.
I just want to point out one thing, just because I think we need to present to our listeners the counterpoint, which is very, very short. You've said it before, Mend, and I've pushed back on it before. I'm going to push back on it again. I know you say this is the Biden administration's investigation and they were merely reading the results. According to this administration, according to Bondi, according to Trump, according to Patel and Bongino, this investigation was theirs. She was brought into office in February, and it was initiated, and she decided when it was done, and then she read the results of that. That was done under the Trump administration. It is important not to try and push that particular part of it off, because this investigation's conclusions were the conclusions of the Trump administration. They said there's no there. And now they have to go through a bunch of hoops in order to make all the crazy people stop being crazy for a minute.
Yeah, I was unaware of that. I was unaware that that was a Bondi investigation over the last, 5 months?
Yeah.
It was from February until July 7th.
Golan listed last week the exact case log of Bongino and Patel investigating this case.
They have a lot on their plate, those two.
Yeah, that's putting it more than mildly. It's think about what those two have on their plate. I mean, really, we have to give these guys credit. They're clearing up one of the most corrupt organizations in the United States of America. And every day they're trying to do their job. That's why I'm not going after Bongino. It's why I'm not going after Patel. And it's why I'm not going after Bondi. I want everybody to take a look at what John Radcliffe has to go through at the CIA, what Bondi has to go through at the DOJ, and what Patel has to go through at the FBI. You're talking about 20 years of it being a cesspool. And God bless them. I just want to end on a funny story of the day, which is another favorite subject of men's, which is Macron and his wife. They are now suing Candace Owens for consistently saying that Macron's wife was born a male. And I can't believe I'm actually rooting for the first time in my life for Macron to win.
I'm rooting for both. This is one of those things where whoever wins, it's fantastic. This is one, grab the popcorn and just enjoy this show.
Can I tell you what her claim is? What Candace Owens' claim is?
Yeah, let's hear it.
That Brigitte was born Jean-Michel, that they're incest siblings. Okay? I didn't know this until I read the story.
That she's his sister or brother?
Yes. That Macron is part of a CIA brain experiment, and she has asked them to come on the show to be interviewed several times, and somehow they keep ignoring her, and it makes her even madder, and it makes her double down on the stories. I'm kind of in love with just the level of insanity and the stupidity of the world sometimes.
You know what the bigger question is? It's like, it goes to the point or the question of who the hell is listening to her? I mean, really, I want to meet the Candace Owens crowd. If I would actually do a GoFundMe and start like that, she has a convention, the Candace convention, you could have the Alex Jones convention at the same time and see if there's some major crossover appeal. Because this is another thing. Everybody forgets what Alex Jones did with Sandy Hook, right? Everybody, because he, like everybody else, was right about COVID, somehow that granted him or allowed him back into a party. I don't want Alex Jones in any party I'm in. I don't want Candace Owens in any party I'm in. And I don't mean political party. I mean literally. I do not want to be in the same establishment as these two nuts. Men, so are you happy with Golan's reporting?
I love it. I'm going to so in addition to being his high school teacher, where she was like 50 and he was 17, somehow Candace says that they're also siblings that married each other. Yeah, it's great.
And that he's part of the MK Ultra program, that the CIA is controlling the French president. Don't forget that little tidbit, which is also, by the way, Judah, I think you're bringing up a great question of, if you're like, I know people like Bill Maher talks about this a lot. He loves the National Enquirer. He reads it
Right.
on a regular basis. He doesn't read it because he's reading the news. He's reading it like you read Mad Magazine. You're like, look at that. This is such a silly story. This is crazy. This is so funny. Oh, these guys are so creative. But there are people who read that stuff and are like, Bigfoot's back. Like, okay. So this calls into question. Are the people who are listening to Candace Owens the Bill Maher's, or are they the Bigfoot lovers? Are they the ones who genuinely listen to this and they're like, MK Ultra, sounds right? Or do they go, God, I just can't wait to see what she's going to say next because clearly she's off the rails? Because it feels like a lot of the people, at least if you read Twitter, keep using her as a source. Candace was right. She called it. She this, she that. But if this is the kind of stuff that she's saying on her show, how can we take anything that she says seriously whatsoever?
Forget about the Jewish stuff. I mean,
I don't even mean that. I mean
anything. Forget about anything. And I don't get it. I don't. But you're right.
Let me tell you something. All those conspiracy theories all lead back to the Rothschilds. Every single one of them.
Exactly
somehow,
right.
It's
Correct.
a Jew-bent, weird phenomenon. I went down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole when I was about 20. And all roads led back to Rothschild's global domination. They're controlling everything. And it's a nutty place to go.
Hey, listen, we have people like that will comment on, and it's really very few, but they'll quote the elders of Zion and all these different groups. And it reminds me of that scene as we're closing up from Men in Black. Remember when Tommy Lee Jones with Will Smith went to the magazine stand Golan and he picked out Star-like magazine of alien attacks. A woman claims that alien attacks town. That is really the Candace Owens, Alex Jones,
Marjorie Taylor Greene, because don't forget the Jewish space lasers were linked to the Rothschilds. Man, you win a lollipop.
There we go. So one final thing. What do the betting markets have whether or not she's circumcised or not?
It's the poly markets.
The poly market. There you go.
And the poly markets actually have JD Vance in a landslide at this point.
For being circumcised?
No, definitely not Elon Musk. I hope something we said today was of value, since I have no memory of what was shared and I'm scared. But I want to thank everybody and remind everybody, please go to Substack, follow us, Daily Cheat Sheet, YouTube, Daily Cheat Sheet. Of course, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, that's where you hear us. And those other places is where you can see us. So also go to Instagram, X at TD Cheat Sheet, and of course, True Social, we're the Daily Cheat Sheet, but we're also our own handles, Judah Friedman and Golan Ramraz. And on that note, I just want to wish everybody a good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. God bless you all.